Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. This is home of compassionate conservatism and advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as afforded by capitalism and society excellence as afforded by equality of opportunity. So in essence, I'm calling for capitalism with a human first, that is capitalism with a human first. So now this is Africa Perspectives, and in Africa Perspectives, I'm asking, can Africa produce another Mandela? That is, can Africa produce another Mandela? Remember, Mandela was a global icon. He was jailed for 27 years, came out of prison, and really forgave his tormentors and went on to build a rainbow nation in South Africa, in which white South Africans and black South Africans could partake in the country altogether. Remember, a lot of white South Africans had feared that if Mandela came to power, there would be chaos later on. There would be white genocide. Of course, some white commentators are already saying there is already white genocide in South Africa, but of course not at the scale we expected. Of course, a lot of white talent is fleeing South Africa. Notably, most famous white talent to flee out of South Africa is Elon Musk, projected to be the world's richest man. So, can Africa produce another Mandela? Remember, Mandela forgave his white tormentors, and of course he shared in the Nobel Peace Prize in 1983 together with in the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 together with that is F.W. de Klerk, that is the last apartheid, the white apartheid ruler of South Africa. So Mandela is projected as a global icon of peace. He was really a secular saint, and I think that's how you view Mandela. Basically, he fought against apartheid, went to prison, and of course came out. Of course, one of the repercussions of his coming out of prison was that he had to divorce his wife, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, of course, after a strenuous relationship. So I think, and then married the former first lady of Mozambique, Graça Machel, who was married to Mozambique's founding president, Samora Machel. So, can Africa produce another Mandela? What kind of conditions will it take to produce another Mandela? I think Africa's tragedy is leadership, and it is not that Africa has a shortage of leaders. It is simply that those leaders that are supposed to lead Africa are buried deep within. There are cattle deep chairmen who have been buried. The standards we choose for our local leaders are not the same standards that we choose our national leaders. When we are choosing our cattle deep chairman, we look for the best. We look for someone that will not steal the money for the cows when they are coming to be dipped. And when we choose the wedding committee chairperson, we choose the best so that they will not steal the money for the organizers of the wedding. When we choose the school lab wing building committee, the school lab building committee chairperson, we choose the best, someone that will not run away with the money. So why is it that when we choose our national leaders, all the standards got out of the window? And I think it's a tragedy that we still vote along tribal lines. So we still vote along tribal lines. African countries, yes, they did not ethno-culturally evolve as the other European countries, or maybe such as Japan, Britain, China, or maybe even the United States. They did not culturally evolve, so there were amalgamations of tribe A and tribe B. So nowadays you find that a president comes from region A or a tribal enclave B, and I think then the opposition comes from region B and a tribal enclave C. So I think really what we need to be doing is to morphing these African countries into one supra entity. That is how to assure of African voting patterns, and I think we need to move away from voting based on tribes and regions to voting based on ideology. If we go voting based on ideology, maybe conservative or liberal, then African leaders will have a healthcare plan, will have a jobs plan, will have an education plan, will have an infrastructure plan. But right now we don't interrogate these matters. We just vote along tribal lines, and that is why we elect the worst. According to Professor Pierre Lumumba, he often says that Africans often elect the worst. So we choose the worst that are coming to lead Africa. Then we wonder why things don't move. It's simply because we have chosen the worst. We don't choose African leaders that can really take the continent forward. And I think we really have puppets as leaders. We really have puppets as leaders. We don't have people that can deliver Africa to the next growth stage. And I think, I think Africa did not attain its independence. When we look at it critically, what we thought was independence was not independence at all. Now we have black colonizers instead of white colonizers. Now we have black colonizers, and I think really we did not attain any independence at all. I think what happened, the running of the colonies was getting too expensive, and so what did the white colonizers do? They simply said, yes, we can have puppets instead, so that they can ensure that Africa grows just enough so that wealth freely flows to Western capitals. And I think that is what happened. So wealth freely flows to Western capitals just enough so that we cannot die and continue to be slaveholders for our first of all, our black masters, and then of course our white masters. So Africa and African has two enemies. So we have the white colonizers who are in Western capitals, former colonizers in Western capitals, and of course then we have the black colonizers who are doing the bidding for the white colonizers. So those are the two oppressors we have in Africa, and I think so when these black colonizers, they have our names, they have our surnames, they speak like us, they talk like us, they look like us, but they are doing the bidding for the West. And I bet you no African country has ever had a leader that really propels them to lift Africans out of poverty. If a leader comes along and wants to propel Africans out of poverty, they will be kicked out. They will be kicked out. They will die, or they will not win an election. That's how is it. That's why a country such as DR Congo, which is projected to be worth about $30 trillion, has remained an underdog, basically not able to enjoy the fruits of its mineral resources. Look at a country like DR Congo, $30 trillion, but nothing to show for it. Its mineral potential is $30 trillion according to the CIA fact book. But that will only happen if it converts uranium to nuclear power, if it converts ingadam to hydroelectric power, if it converts copper to electronic parts, if it converts titanium to aeroplane parts, if it converts gold and diamond to jewelry, if it converts coffee to coffee drinking chains, if it converts cocoa to chocolate. That's how the value addition. But no African leader is capable of this. I don't know how this artificial layer can be gotten rid of. They suck us to the last point of blood. These leaders we have in Africa, they suck us to the last point of blood in order to be doing a bidding for their Western masters. They suck us dry. They really are not leaders that you cannot rely. I long ago abandoned really my faith in these leaders. They're just puppets. These African leaders are puppets. That's it. They will not develop Africa. And I think there needs to be a renewed liberation push towards emancipating Africa. These people and African voters still go to the same polling booths and still re-elect these leaders. What is wrong with the African voter? Is he bewitched? What is wrong with the African voter? What is wrong with the African voter that they still go to the polling booth and still elect the puppets, these puppets as their leaders? Why don't we elect people that will see to it that Africa functions well? And I think if that happens, then Africans will begin to enjoy the fruits of their mineral resources. We will begin to have peace in Africa, and Africa will ethno-culturally evolve. Africa has the potential to be a superpower. Look at the mineral resources that are gotten out of Africa. They are powering the information revolution in Africa, but there is not a single mobile phone factory in Africa. There is not a single electric vehicle a car factory in Africa, while these resources are gotten from Africa. So I think Africa really, it is our leaders. This is an artificial layer. These are semi-white, semi-black. They are not even African leaders at all. They are semi-white, they are semi-black. So they are hybrid white rulers, these people that are leading Africa. And I don't think they are going to lead Africa to any place at all. So I think Africa can produce another Mandela. Of course, Mandela did not bring economic dividends to South Africa, but that was supposed to be handled by the later leaders, but they turned out to be corrupt. Look at Jacob Zuma, the guy who inherited Nelson Mandela, a complete person, moron, who was really told the people that he will not get AIDS because he had showered. So you can imagine that Africa does not have leaders that will lead it to the promised land, but I bet that what we need to be doing is to ensure that we have leaders that lead us to the promised land, and that is how to grow Africa so that it can be a $200 trillion economy. If DR Congo is worth $30 trillion, then I bet that Africa can be worth $200 trillion, and that's the way then Africa can be that shining city on the hill. Africa has been subjugated by the West for about 500 years, so I don't think we should be continue to be subjugated by the West. So you let me know if you think Africa can produce another Mandela. So now this has been Mabinda TV. This is home of compassionate conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as afforded by capitalism and society excellence as afforded by equality of opportunity. So in essence, you are calling for capitalism with a human face. That is capitalism with a human face.